Look, everybody, I'm wearing a tux today.
Thanks for dressing up for the occasion.
I'm dressing up for the occasion. Because, you know.
It's the big rock and roll show.
It is a big rock and roll show. It's Chris and Mike show.
Which is always a rock and roll show.
See how I casually faded that out? I thought I'd be good my shit, man.
Yeah, I wish it worked like that and I didn't have to do away with it and redo it because Riverside sucks on their editing side.
I'm sorry.
It's still all the
Riverside
same.
do better, man.
It's still all the same volume. The motherfuckers.
That's a drag. Do better, Riverside. Do better.
I got skills, man. I got skills.
Mike Michaels, ladies and gentlemen. Skills beyond recognition. So, here we are. Rock and roll coochie coo time on the Chris and Mike show. Thank you for joining us. Hey, so I think we should kind of touch on some silly things has the kidnapping episode aired yet? Because I'm not sure where that shit falls.
It'll be tomorrow.
Okay, so this is good. So we're dropping this show about this chick who was kidnapped, and I've taken this story to several different females. Okay, because she's a female, and she felt she was kidnapped. Now, when you hear the show, she's going to reference, what was it, 3 different occasions, right?
Yeah.
Okay, one was a 30-minute kidnapping in a bathroom. what is okay? And one was a 12-hour kidnapping in an entire apartment structure, and I don't know if it was actually an apartment itself or
she started out in a car.
Right. She called it an apartment, but I wasn't sure if it was actually an apartment because then she later explains that it was in this gentleman's family's estate. He had his own structure, you know, far apart from the main structure, and that was kidnapped. Now, by definition, okay, a person commits a kidnapping when they purposely restrain the movements of another person and cause that other person fear or immediate physical harm or any of the other factors listed in the law, okay? So the legal definition, okay, in the sum, to be guilty of kidnapping under this statute, the prosecution must prove that you took or held someone through force or fear, and you moved or made that person move a substantial distance, and the other person did not have consent, and you didn't actually believe the person consented. So, by knowing that, my very good rock and roll friend,
lay it on me.
Do you think that 30 minutes locked in a bathroom, 12 hours locked in an apartment, in an entire apartment complex or apartment, constitutes kidnapping?
I've thought about how I wanted to answer this for a while, you know.
Yeah, because we both kind of had like,
So,
not that we're discounting the person that you're going to hear and you're going to watch the show, but Mike and I both since have had a couple little, you know, insightful.
I'm leaving it open to see what everybody else says. I've done the same thing.
Okay.
I've kind of explained what the show was.
Right.
Just for my own personal, now I'm a fan and I'm not the co-host of the show, right?
Sure.
I'm hearing that story for the first time. And the reason, not the main reason, but
right.
Let me back up. I'm thinking about how I want to answer this question and talking at the same time, which is not a good idea. So one of the reasons that we started this show is to meet new and interesting people and hear their stories, right?
100%.
So I'm a fan as much as I am the co-host of this show. And I think that's part of what the appeal of the show for people who like it is. And I appreciate that too. That's the reason people came to see us play, because we were as big of fans of our music as we were musicians, right? We loved playing it, or we wouldn't have done it. So all that said, when Chris brought this idea to Mike, the co-host of the Chris and Mike show, and said, hey, I got this girl who's got a really interesting story. She's been kidnapped on multiple occasions by multiple different men.
Right.
Your mind goes to Pamela Smart, Elizabeth, whatever her name. I can't
I know who you're talking about.
Horrible.
Yeah.
People who, and maybe the definition of kidnap, the way you read it in its legal form, she was. Maybe we're confusing kidnapping with being abducted.
Oh, that's a good point, Mike. Let's look up abduction.
That's why I had to think about this answer for a while.
I like that. See, this is why Mike and I get along so well, is because we do. We talk about things and we don't. It's not fuck you, you're wrong. Fuck you, you're wrong. It's like, no, I know, but
you made me think for days. It's great.
Right, but for people that are just joining us, right? I want them to I want them to understand this isn't a one-sided conversation ever. My ideas and his ideas are different. My beliefs, his beliefs are different. But we're that rare. We're those rare individuals that can actually have an intelligent conversation, whether we agree or disagree, and we don't lose our shit because we may not agree with each other.
On deep subjects, too.
Yes,
that's where it's rare. Is when you start talking politics and religion, and this is a young girl with a horrible story, and when. At first, when you started asking questions, the empathetic side of me is like, ready to pounce on you,
right?
Because
I'm not a super empathetic person. Like I'm not an empath as a personality. Like Mike is, I'm not. I could not pick up how somebody feels unless it's a dramatic, like, holy shit, I feel that vibe. I'm just not that way. Nikki is. My kids are. I just don't have that in my DNA. It's something. And
I know that, and I understand it, and that's part of how you and I get along. Is sometimes you'll say something, and then I'll give you my side of it, and you'll meet somewhere in the middle, or you'll agree with me, or you'll stick with where you're at, and we're still friends.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
How many times 100%. Have you and I said to each other, "We're just going to have to agree to disagree on this particular subject"? Right.
Countless.
There's a million other things to talk about.
Absolutely.
So, with all that said,
yes. You want to know the definition of abduction?
Yeah. Before I say what I'm going to say, I want to hear the definition. Of abducted.
That's all, folks. Oh my gosh, dude, this is a hard one to say fast. The law.com, the legal dictionary. Okay. Abduction is the criminal taking away of a person by persuasion, in parentheses, convincing someone, particularly a minor or a woman / he, she, is better off leaving with the persuader. By fraud, telling the person he, she is needed, or that the mother or father wants him or her to come home with the abductor, or by open force or violence. Okay, that's one of the definitions of it as a noun. The other part of it is the act of taking someone away by force or cunning / kidnapping. The action of certain muscles in pulling a leg, arm, etc. away from the median axis of the body. So there's your definitions of kidnapping versus abduction. So what say you, Pierre?
That changes my answer.
Okay, cool.
Because I think we were on some level, and everybody else is confusing being abducted with being kidnapped.
Correct.
She was kidnapped by the definition you read to me.
Yes.
She was held against her will without her consent. She wanted to leave on multiple occasions. Mm-hmm. Where I agree with you still, and I could never overcome this. And this is how much, when I said 50-some episodes ago, and God bless anybody who started at the beginning and has made it this far, because the first 40-some episodes, there was a horrible delay and just whatever. Thanks for making it through that. I hope it's much better and more entertaining now. So I think the part I just still can't overcome the fact that she put herself, and I think she has to agree with this, in some horribly dangerous predicaments for a young lady.
And if you listen to the show, you guys will understand what we're talking about. But and the reason why, just so you know, the reason why I didn't look up those definitions until today is because I wanted to have a real, raw, relevant conversation with Mike about what I see since the show recorded, what he's seen since the show recorded, because I've sent him stuff, and we've casually addressed it, but not to the point that we're doing now.
And when I went back and edited it, there's some real raw emotion there. And she, you know, the thing that I think we're both forgetting when we're slipping into different trains of thought is she's still a very young girl. She's not even 30 years old, right?
Correct.
So all this happened to her between 19 and present day.
Right.
And
which even the timeline's still a little skewed because, you know, and you'll hear the show, and I don't want to give it away because it's a really good show. It's a really intriguing conversation with this person.
It was fantastic.
Right. Like Mike says, there unfortunately I couldn't see a lot of the emotion because she was frozen on my screen the bulk of the time.
I could hear it in her voice.
But once the show drops, then it's definitely something that we want you guys to have your opinion. We want you guys to formulate what you feel, whether, and I'm not saying she's not genuine.
No, I never felt like you were.
Okay, good. I just, things that make you go, okay. There's a point in the show where I specifically asked her how tall she is versus her captor. Okay. And she ducks that question, so I ask it again.
Unless she didn't hear you.
Which is possible.
You got to give people the benefit of the doubt sometimes.
Agreed. So then she came back and said 5'6". I'm like, okay, well, how tall was your abductor? Well, he was 5'6". Well, since the show aired, she has made a claim that she was extremely obese. So to me, kind of backpedaling now, and again, I shared this with some females.
Well, she did friend me on Facebook.
Okay.
And if you go back through her photos,
okay,
she didn't always look like she does now.
Okay, and that's fair. My whole point behind that
we never went down that road really either.
No, but I think for me it would have been relevant in the conversation when I asked how tall she was, because if she would have came back, well, I was 5'6", but I weighed 250 pounds, that would have, and I'm not saying she weighed that much.
That obese.
Right, but that would have skewed my opinion, because where I was going with that line of questioning was, you've already been there once. You've already been in a horrific situation a couple of years prior to that. Then you were in another horrific situation. Now you put yourself in another horrific situation. Most females learn from the first horrific situation. I got to carry pepper spray. I got to carry mace. I got to defend myself, etc. Go ahead.
She didn't have any kind of upbringing to have a basis to have any train of thought like that, right? So let me use myself as an example.
Okay.
Every time I made a horrible decision in my life, right, I at least had the foundation of my mother or my dad, whichever situation was pertinent, right?
Sure.
In the back of my head going, you know, that's a really dumb idea, right?
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
they at least, I've said many times, they're not judgmental people. If you tell them you're going to do something, they'll give you their opinion, but they'll never say, you know, we're going to disown you if you go do that.
Right.
Not everybody has that foundation to keep making intelligent decisions, right? Eventually, when I changed my life and wanted to do the right thing and be a good person and, you know, make my own way, it was because of that foundation that kept pressing me forward to not end up dead or committing suicide or, you know. I'm just saying she had no kind of upbringing with a addicted alcoholic mother, and you know you can appreciate that. Not everybody's you, right?
No, absolutely. I mean, I still kind of
we were born with some pretty unique brains.
Yeah, and I still want to fall. I still want.
I'm not saying we're the smartest people in the world. I'm just saying we think uniquely versus the way other people think, and I've learned this along the way. I'm not broken. I'm just different than everybody else. I don't just follow the herd.
Right. And so I think for me, it came back and with the line of questioning, it was kind of like, even though you're right, she didn't have that kind of upbringing with the sense, you know, the cartoon, right? You know, the devil and the angel on the shoulders. Hey, don't do that, you know, that type of the conscious thing, right? I still think common sense would dictate.
Not everybody has that either.
But see, that I just can't wrap my head around.
That's why the world's fucked.
That's why, but I can't wrap my head around that, because you would think, and when you listen to the show that she's on, you're going to understand.
She did eventually. As far as we know.
Right. But it took 1, 2, 3, 4-ish situations. And
it took me 3 times of trying to get sober to be smart enough to not do drugs that were going to kill me. Right.
This is true. That's a good point. I don't know. It's
when you have failed as many times as, I'll use myself as an example. Those 3 times, the first time I should have been smart enough to know that what I was doing was killing me. It took almost dying before I was smart enough to, say, okay, I could be dead tomorrow at this point. So let's quit now. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Some people just keep making stupid decisions.
Yeah, and it could, and that whole thing could be chalked up to that she just put herself. And when you listen to the show, you'll hear it. She put herself in some pretty horrific.
So did I, but I was a man.
Right, which is a huge difference, unless you're going to a P. Diddy party.
Well, one of the places I was at one night, several hours later, the guy that owned the place was put on his knees and executed.
Yeah.
I could have just as easily been at that place because I was there all the time.
Sure. Yeah. 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 So and again, that's the beauty of Mike and I in our conversations and the interviewing and things like that, because you don't want to always have, at least in my opinion, because I went to school to be a journalist and wanted to grow up to be a, writer, in that world of journalism, not just in the world of what I've done, but you always have to go in questioning. Regardless of what the interview is, what you're talking about, you always have to have the element of question, because your job as a journalist, which in some small sense of the word, when we have guests on our show, that's what we're doing. We're being journalists. We're interviewing. We're
100%.
So to keep the integrity of that, because the true nature of journalism is to report. It's not to educate. I mean, it's to report and educate. It's not to entertain, even though this is an entertainment platform. The reason why the news is all skewed nowadays is because they switched it from actually reporting the news to just an entertainment basis. Because if you look at the news, what do you see? It's fluff. It's all bullshit. You don't hear about the concrete news.
Because they have to cover 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Yeah.
Right. So a lot of it, 23 of those hours is fluff, man. Or
propaganda, as I like to call it.
Right. So I'm not discounting any of this guest story. I'm not discounting what happened.
No, and I never took it that way. I'm just giving you my side of it.
Agreed.
I heard.
Right. I'm letting our listeners know, because I don't want people thinking I'm being a judgmental prick and calling bullshit on her story, because I'm not.
No.
I see things, and then it makes me question. Like, she posted something about
one of the many hundreds of reasons that I could come up with when I was like, who do I want to do a podcast with? Because I don't want to do it by myself, right?
Right.
That's one of the biggest reasons I kept coming back to you is 2 things. I knew that I could disagree with you without you getting pissed off and our friendship getting ruined. And that's
vice versa.
Very important, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
You touched on that, and I couldn't agree more when you said that earlier.
Yep.
It gets rough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The other reason is I knew we weren't yes men. We weren't just going to be like, okay, let's make this. Here's how we're going to approach this episode so that the listeners think this, right?
Yes.
For the people who are listening at home, that's the point Chris was trying to get across earlier, and I'll reinforce it, is we don't really talk before we do any of this unless we're going to have a guest to give a little bit of a background on, like, I knew Wade was into wrestling and he was into, Chris will give me like little tidbits. But we don't talk before we do this. No. When it's just him and I on here, he just sent me a little, got an idea for the show, going to be fun, and this is what it was. So, and he's right. This is good. A synopsis of here's what I heard and here's what he heard. And now we are interested in what you heard. And
absolutely.
Cheyenne, if you're listening, if you want to chime in and either correct us, or if you have, comment.
Hopefully it doesn't piss her off, because that's not my intention.
But that's not my intent either. We didn't.
Yeah.
I will say that I went into it being 100% honest, thinking that she wasn't Elizabeth Smart 3 different times.
Right.
Like where she was literally in someone else's home for a long length of time. And, you know, that was just my own preconceived, probably Hollywood notion of what a kidnapping is, right?
And that's why I read the definitions. That's why I thought about like really like 2 or 3 minutes before the show.
If we were, and I'm glad you did it from the law side of it.
Yes.
If we were in court, here's what a prosecutor would have to prove. And by the definition you read me, we could prove that.
Right. Because see, when some of the females I've talked to, the locked in the bathroom isn't, in their eyes, isn't kidnapping. It's just some asshole locking them in the bathroom. They're, if you've watched, you know,
but here's another but.
Okay.
No, finish your thought. I got.
Well, I was just going to say, of all the crime stuff you and I've watched in our entire lives, and the serial killer stuff, and just the investigative reports. I mean, just littered with them. Like our brain could just be filled with just the criminal dark element of our world, right? And so that's where my definition of kidnapping was not her definition of kidnapping. Like we talked about with the definitions we read on, you're right.
Right.
Kidnapping is, you're going down the street, you're walking home the street, white man pulls up, opens the door. Hey, Johnny, you want some candy? Oh, I love some candy. Kidnapped. See you later. Bye. Right.
Or just a bag over your head and thrown in the van. And so, you know, you kind of alluded to that during the episode, you know, where you sold as a sex slave or something.
Right. Because that's what I always think kidnapping is being taken against your will. Now so the females I've talked to about it, and then you get back to your
No, you're fine.
Was that it was more of a domestic violence or a domestic dispute, or just two people having an argument and one's being a stubborn asshole locking her in the bathroom for 30 minutes because fuck you, you're not going to listen to me, I'm just locking the bathroom.
So that leads right into my butt.
Okay, good.
Unless he's screaming violently and like pounding on the door. I told you I went through a period in my life that I'm not very proud of. I never hit anybody and I never hurt anybody, but I tried to be the most intimidating prick on the planet, right?
Right.
Just my way or the highway, and I'm not listening to anybody else's opinion, and I'm not proud of that time. But when you're in that state, you are not able to be reasoned with on any level.
Agreed.
So if that guy's standing out there screaming at a 21-year-old girl, beating on the door, you know, I'll kill you or I'll fucking rape you or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
That's pretty scary for somebody that can't defend themselves.
Absolutely.
So if that was the situation, I can see, and to hear it in her voice and to see her emotion, I think that's probably a lot of what it was he was so intimidating that, you know, she didn't know what to do, and she was young and didn't have, like I said, she didn't have any background, and problems compound problems.
Absolutely.
Right?
No. And that's a valid point, all of that. So, you know, again, we were supposed to have a guest on, but it's not happening. So I was like, oh, let's talk about some random stuff. And I figured we'd touch on this because the other thing that, and she can come back on and dispute too, whenever you and I have brought up sobriety, alcoholism / addiction, whoever we've talked to, right? And correct me if I'm wrong. That opens a whole nother can of conversation that may go for 5 minutes or may go for 1 minute or may go for 20.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So she recently posted something basically saying that she was obese and a recovering alcoholic and a sober life coach. So the obesity thing I get because, again, I bounce this off females like, well, you know, we're not going to volunteer that I was overweight. I get that. But when you and I were so adamant about our sobriety and where we were at in life with that, for her not to chime in, oh, I'm an alcoholic in recovery too, so much so that I decided to come be a sober life coach because the entire episode she just says life coach. There's a difference between life coach and sober life coach. It's a whole different realm. So
did she? Because I can't attest to that. I don't remember down to
she
that.
Never said no. She never said sober life coach. She just said life
Careful
coach.
With never.
And she's
in
our show. She never said the word sober life coach. She said life coach, and that she was going to school to become a therapist.
Okay.
So if that was just her not thinking.
I don't have a comeback for that one.
I don't either. I'm just saying that's just one of those things that kind of threw up my little red flag. And again, not discounting the conversation we had, not discounting her story because neither one of us lived it. Neither one of us were there. It's her.
And I'm glad you said that because somewhere in here I was going to say that too. You know, at the end of the day, here's how I approach a subject like that. If I can't come to some kind of resolution, is I wasn't there, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
what are my keys in life? I always told you there's a couple things that people shouldn't talk about unless they have actually done it.
Sure.
Raising kids, doing drugs. Those are two big ones. If you've never done either one of them, I don't want to hear your opinion because you don't know. Right?
Exactly.
I don't say, hey, man, here's what I would do if I were you with the kids. Like,
right.
The fuck am I, right?
Right. Now, see, the funny thing about that, Skylar's on vacation. Ooh,
I've seen her pictures. Very nice.
Total topic
Looks
change.
like fun.
So, but we as parents, like, we did that, right? We took the kids to California and the beach and all that kind of shit. And
so did my parents. Yeah.
Right. So Skylar had sent us something, and Nikki chimed back, and I was kind of like, we need to let her just create her own memories. Like, because there comes a point in time, right, where you want to say, oh, when we took you to the beach.
Hold on. Meaning what, though?
That's how I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that.
Okay. All right.
Okay. So if Nikki chimed back, I forget what the actual thing was that Skylar sent, but we'll fast forward to where they're on the beach. Okay.
Okay.
Because that hit Nikki in the back of her head. Like, I just want to text her and tell her, I hope you brought a second pair of shorts, that you're going to have to go back to the house. You're going to have to wash all those things, wring them out, get all the sand out of them, make it, you're going to hang them to dry. Okay. The right. It's you see what I'm saying? So it's the experience that we had.
I could save you all this, but then you would never be able to have, like I'm sure you guys talk about that. Hey, do you remember when? Those are the do you remember when stories, right?
Right. So it's like June.
Inadvertent thumbs up, but it was appropriate.
Right, but her husband June, we call him June because he's a junior. He's Michael Eugene Fry Jr. And we just call him June. I call him by his full name because I'm just funny like that.
Yes, you are.
So, but he gets them. They stop somewhere and he gets them grown-up Slurpees. Like, shit you not. The picture is hilarious because Tripp's at the counter. If you can't see me, boys and girls that are you just listening, figure an 18-month-old kid with his little.
It's like Wilson on Home Improvement.
Yes, or it's like where you're just looking up like I want that icy, and little man's pointing to his icy, and they're fucking adult icy's like 44-ounce shit. And we look at that picture like, are they fucking crazy? They're gonna have to stop in like a half an hour. The sugar rush, right? The sugar rush they're gonna get in an SUV.
In a car.
They're gonna be bouncing off the walls and shit. So much so when they got to the beach that night, it was like 11 o'clock, and they were wired. Obviously. So they let him run on the beach under the moonlight. Great fucking memory. So if we would have chimed in and said, what are you, fucking nuts? Like, Slurpees on the road? It was a 4.5 hour trip. It took them 9 hours because of all the stops, right? But that was them building those memories. That little man, he's 5, so he's gonna remember pieces of that. Because I can remember shit. I can remember shit back to when we lived in Phoenix, which was ages 73 to 76.
I have snapshots back that far.
Yeah,
for sure.
Like that's when we were kidnapped, my brother and I. That's when my mother was beaten, bent over couches and shit by Doc, who's on death row somewhere. And that's all still vivid memories because it's trauma, but it's still there. So it's cool that little man will remember this shit. Trip won't because he's not old enough. But that was the thing. We let them set their own memories instead of being the parents saying, hey, make sure you bring extra diapers. Make sure you bring a separate pair of clothes, because she's got to learn that, and her husband's got to learn that, and then realize next time, oh, fuck, we got to make sure we do this, and this time, because last time that didn't work.
But when she's your age, they'll be sitting there going, remember how silly we were back then?
Right.
Yeah. And those are, still to this day, man, sitting around with my mom and dad, those are the funniest, most memorable stories that all of us have, because we were all there and we all experienced it together, right?
Yes.
And some crazy shit happened on our vacation. So they can sit and tell you stories for hours like that.
Right.
And had they not, made those mistakes that seemed horrific, or even if they weren't horrific, they seemed very inconvenient at the time, are the funniest fucking stories.
Right.
Just because, they happen. They're just weird things that happen to you when you're together as a family.
Yeah. And
You're
that's
never
the whole point. Right.
That time never happens again,
No, and that's why I kind of reeled Nikki back in, because she wanted to chime in, and then later that day she wanted to chime in again. I'm like, we just got to let them be. We just got to let.
They only get to be that age once.
Right. And they only get to go to California at that age as a unit once, because next time they're going to be older and they'll be more experienced and they're going to make this change and that change. You know, what was really funny.
That was a really good, like, life coaching moment at that time, like in the moment, you know, to be able to stop and realize that that's what you would be doing that's cool.
Yeah, and I have cool moments every now and then, man.
It's almost like you paused the universe for a second and went, here's what would happen if we did this now, right?
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, it just came to me. It wasn't like I was in deep thought. She just wanted to respond to something. I'm like, we should just let them create their own moments.
Yes.
What do you mean? I'm like,
brilliant.
Let them fail. Let them, because that's like with our kids, with Skylar and Jake, we wanted them to have a better life than we had, because Nick and I both came from chaos, right? So we kind of really did everything for them, you know, I mean, to the fact that, I mean, they're very well...
Built them a family.
Right. I mean, they're very well rounded for the most part. They're very independent. Jake's been a Marine since, 18 years old and 6 months or something. Was it May, June, July, August, 4 months. You know what I mean? So he was kind of forced to be a man in the military, which is perfect. That's what it's for, right? Sure. Skylar had her own path, and now she's come full circle, where there's moments of time Nikki and I look at each other like, who the fuck is this? Like, sure.
That's awesome.
Oh, I'm doing this, and we're just kind of like, which is great, that is fucking awesome. Great. Right.
So
especially
happy
Mike, and Mike knows our life. Oh, yeah. So he can appreciate them more than the random listener will, but
super happy to hear that.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that it's their turn, so it's kind of cool to let them just do that.
And I'll tell you, like a parallel moment for me is when all of a sudden I become the go-to guy for somebody, and that still shocks me to this day, because there was a time when, I was so far down I didn't even know who I was. So,
right.
It's not lost on me when someone's like, "Hey, well, you're the person that I go to for the answer."
Well, you've lived.
I don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
But it also it should scare the shit out of you on some level. If you're that person for somebody, you should take it that seriously. And for anybody listening who is a friend of mine on that level, Chris included, he knows that without being said, but I always say it out loud. I do take it that seriously.
Yeah.
When someone comes and wants advice and it's a life-changing moment for them, I don't take that lightly at all, ever. To the point where sometimes I'll just tell you, I don't know,
Yeah.
I really just don't know, because I don't want to lead you in the wrong direction. So I think that's how you become that person for somebody. So to hear that she's made it that far in life, that's totally awesome.
Yeah, and we try not to put Nikki calls it putting a voice to it, because when you put a voice to it, it can kind of fall down.
Yeah, here's where I would part ways with her.
Yeah.
She's busting her ass every day to become the person that she's become, and she's going to continue to bust ass every day to become a better person, because that's her mission in life now.
Yes.
That became my mission in life, and that's how I become a better person every day. I can't change yesterday, and I'll be a remember when guy with you all the way until we start saying, I regret this, or I wish I hadn't done that. Hey, now you're wasting your fucking life.
Yeah.
You're literally wasting whatever time you put into that thought. Now you've lost that much more of your life.
Yeah.
Like, wrap your head around that for a second if you're listening to that at home and you do a lot of that. Like where you say, man, I really regret this. I just heard it today. That's why it is sticking in my head. Somebody said, I really regret what I did, here or there, and I wish I hadn't done that. You got to stop thinking that way.
Right, but everybody, because we've talked about it. Like, if I could go back in time with our band, like that whole.
But you don't dwell on it.
No, I don't.
These are people who are
right.
They're not living a quality of life that you and I are in their head,
right?
Because they literally think about that shit. If not, every day, they think about it more often than they should, right? And that's preventing them from being happy and moving forward in life. That's the point I'm making.
Yes, 100% agree. My brother's like that. My brother for years and years and years and years, and now it's maybe 2 text conversations a year with him, but everything, woe is me, finger pointing. It's never my fault. I didn't do this. I didn't cause this. She did this and she did that. And I could have went down that path. You could have went down that path.
I agree with you. If I'm going to go down that path, one of my regrets is, the way we handled where we were when you left, Of course that's a regret. But the only way that I could heal and move forward with my life and be a happy person and helpful to other people is to let all that shit go. You know, the reason that I'm not, for the people who are sitting at home and they're praying for me every day because they hear me say that I don't have a religion, I don't not believe that there's a creator or an organized something or other of the universe. Right. Your book was written by man, and I get real suspect when anybody that lives in the same skin I do had anything to do with the deity you worship. Let's leave it at that, right?
Yeah, because we could go down that path. I love talking about that shit.
But what I
love talking about that, man.
Like for the Mormons out there, I like to wreck their day by saying that their religion was created by a 13-year-old con man. And I'm sorry that I feel that way, but I do true. Because it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
You don't know that because they don't tell you that part, right?
Right.
You would leave quickly.
And how many years after Jesus died did they write the Bible?
The New Testament was written about 1,000 years after he died.
Okay, 1,000 years. So I'm 55 years old, and I can vaguely
commissioned
remember
by Constantine.
Right. So I can vaguely remember shit from my childhood. And you're going to say that somebody who's passed 1,000 years ago, all these people that are no longer with him, were alive during his time on earth, are going to get together and scribe the New Testament.
Right.
It's kind of like the pyramid discovery, right? Like all of a sudden the pyramids are just on the ground up, and then they have this massive technology now that can x-ray the ground below. And
I could have
holy
told you
shit.
that.
Our entire way of thinking for the pyramids is wrong. So
it was probably an energy source of some kind.
Probably, that's what I was thinking. And we're not discounting the Bible. We're not doing that. I mean, there's historical facts about the age of shit they found, all that kind of jazz. So we're not disputing that. We're just. Everything that comes out of my mouth on this show, and I thought about this week for some stupid reason. Okay. Everything that I say, I've said this before, but it bears repeating more often than not. Number one, I am not married to any of my ideas, and that's another good idea for the people out there to just give it a shot, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Be open-minded and listen to other people's opinions, and take the good parts and throw the bad parts away, and you're going to become a different person all the time, right? You're going to grow mentally, physically, spiritually, and a lot of those things that I say about religion are going to start not making sense. Like the big one being, if the way I was raised in the Christian church was 100% correct, everybody else is fucked.
Right.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
And I could never live with that, first and foremost.
100%, man. 100%.
They're fucked.
I agree. Yeah. No, I know exactly
because they don't believe that Jesus Christ was their Lord and Savior. So,
yeah, exactly.
By definition, you're going to hell.
Yep.
I don't understand how somebody could be a good person every day,
right?
Never do anything wrong, not hurt anybody,
correct,
but never accept the Lord Jesus Christ as their Savior,
right?
And they're going to hell,
right?
But
now,
Dr. Johnson that lives down the street that diddled all the little girls, he sat in the front row every week on Sunday in the Catholic Church or the Presbyterian Church or the Methodist Church or whatever.
Yeah.
And, every Sunday he said whatever he needed to do to save his soul. Right. And even though he diddled the little girls or the boys or whatever, he gets to go to heaven.
Well, it's kind of like the Dahmer conversation we've had, because by all accounts, because I can't either, because by all accounts with Dahmer, when he was in prison, after a certain amount of time in prison, he found the Lord, right? And he accepted the Lord Savior, Jesus Christ, as his personal Savior to absolve him of all his sins, okay? I wrote a song about it. So if that's the case, and you believe in Christian theology, then Dahmer's sitting up in heaven hanging
You
out.
could kill 9,957,000 fucking people.
Yep.
But if at the very last second you accepted Christ as your Savior,
right,
you're going to heaven.
Now, it has to be sincere. From the teachings that I was brought up with, it has to be
Agreed, but
sincere.
still,
right,
that's the flip side of I cannot accept this bullshit.
And see, this is a fun little transition,
it's silly.
dude. See if you track this shit.
Okay,
we're gonna use Deion Sanders as a prime example because he's the one that sticks out in my head. Okay, Deion Sanders, when he came into professional sports, whether baseball, football, same time, dude was a motherfucker. Right, he was a horn dog. He was a sleazeball. He was all about the money. He was all about the partying, all about the women, like just straight
and
up.
Most people put in that position would be for sure. Yeah.
Okay, 100%. Right.
Most people.
And then as he got older, and where he's at now in life, he's this God-fearing. Very rarely does he swear in public. He's very kind of. He found. He found the Jesus. So you can live 30 years of total debauchery.
Yes.
And then you find the Jesus, and then all of a sudden you're trucking down the road. Well, of course your life's going to be easier now because you made your hundreds of millions of dollars as a debauchery. Fuck. Who's walking on people and stepping on stones and heads and shit on his way up. Right. And now all of a sudden you're, look at me. It's kind of like.
That's where I was going real quick.
Okay. Yeah, you're good.
No, that's where I was going was to say, if I was to sit here and tell you that I'm a God-fearing Christian who, loves Jesus and praise the Lord, and I sit on front row on Sunday, you would lose your fucking mind because you know how I lived. You were there. You saw a lot of it.
Right, but that doesn't mean that people can't change because we're living proof.
But
right here that people can.
Here's
change.
a big but.
Yeah. Okay.
Wouldn't you say that along the way? I never tried to. I don't think you know me to have ever tried to intentionally hurt anyone ever for any reason.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Almost the opposite.
Nor have I.
No.
And that's where I. But see, that's
so. How can you be a good person and care about other people and be empathetic towards them and want to do the right thing? But just because I don't believe your silly fucking book, now I'm wrong and you're right. That's the other thing I don't have. That's the other thing I have a problem with is if you tell a Buddhist that you don't believe in what they believe in, they're like, that's okay.
Yeah.
But if you tell a Christian that, some of them will never talk to you again. Or they'll be sad for you. That's a big one.
And they'll pray for you.
Which is cool. You can pray for me all you want.
I'm gonna pray for your soul, Chris. When I left Young Life to pursue my rock and roll dreams, I was ostracized.
Right.
Because they were, and Young Life, for you don't know, boys and girls, is a Christian-based youth outreach program that's typically high school level. It kind of caters to the kids that are kind of outcasts. It's a place, we did it on Monday nights where you come gather with other kids your age and you fuck around for an hour, have fun. They let you, the whole Young Life culture is you're yourself. If you're a smoker, if you're a stoner, if you're a jock, if you're a princess, it's the Breakfast Club, right? All the Breakfast Club characters rolled into that mix. In Young Life, you're all accepted for that hour, that 2 hours, because after club, we called it club, then you would go somewhere and hang out like Ted's Hot Dogs for another hour, and then parents would pick you up and shit. It was a total fellowship. It was a total like helping kids understand.
Is this before or after they touched your wiener?
This is the Young Life never touched my wiener. But there's been that we've talked about that before in an earlier episode that Young Life was involved in a scandal of predators, which, anytime you have kids, youth groups, you're going to have that element, which sucks. But the point here is I was knee deep in Young Life. I was a leader. I was doing my thing, and I got kind of tired of it. I was like, I'm going to go take off. I'm going to go, explore wanting to be in a band. And I knew being in a band was going to require 5 nights a week of rehearsal and kind of jazz. The first band I was ever in was Disturbed. But I got ostracized. I legit people that I thought were my friends that I had walked with, for 2-3 years, weekly, mind you. They kind of mocked it and laughed at it. When I remember letting this guy, Bruce, who was the head of Young Life in Arizona, let him listen to one of our demo tapes, and he just sat there laughing. And to me, it's like, okay, motherfucker, because I went outside your box of the norm, you're gonna mock what now I'm trying to accomplish and pursue. So that hammers your point big time. If you're a Christian and you don't, and the Christian doesn't like your choice, then you will be ostracized. You will be judged like a motherfucker, because Christians more than not judge you. Even though the book that was written 1,000 years after he died, you're not supposed to judge anybody. It's not your job to
And
judge.
how many of them live by the word that they're supposed to?
I don't. There's probably
100%. There's a few.
There's a few that I know that I could rattle off, but I won't. That I think, because they're just that ingrained into the lifestyle of that belief system, that they are, and I can still kind of see it. Like there's one that I reached out to after we had talked. We had a massive conversation, about Metallica and what they do as far as giving back, and what Cliff's dad did for scholarships for kids, with Cliff's money he continues making from Metallica, and how philanthropic the band is, and how philanthropic Cliff's dad was. And I brought that to this one leader because they had this. They went to Metallica concert, like 5 of them, and all the evil in the air. And they were praying in the back of the crowd and praying for all the souls of the kids. And it was such violence and angry and blah, blah, blah. So I had shared that story with him out of the blue, because we're mutual friends on Facebook. And I was like, hey, check this out. I remember when I was in this group and you did that and blah, blah, blah. And of course, then he started backpedaling, and I'm not. He really is. I think he would be one of the ones that I would think was probably 100% the same now as he was 30 years ago. Because
I know people who live that way, and that's
absolutely.
And the one thing that we've always said is, first and foremost, these are our opinions and our beliefs. And
correct.
The one thing that if you do believe in the word, that we all have free will, right? And we're exercising our right to have free will, and if I was a good person and everything that you believe as far as Christianity goes is true, then I got some answering to do at the end, right?
Yep.
But I don't think so. So,
then the other flip side of that coin is, I think you're right though, because if someone leads a good life, right? They don't.
Which is what I've tried to do. I've failed a couple times. We've all failed. We're human, right? But I pick myself back up and keep going that way. So
let's use you as a shining example. Okay, he's never killed anybody. He's never raped anybody. He's never burglarized. He's never stolen. He's never, the 10 Commandments.
I've stolen.
Well, okay, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
On a whole of the 10 Commandments, how many of those have you broken? Maybe 2.
A few. Yeah.
Okay, but you were genuinely sorry for it, and you've genuinely reflected on that.
I used to carry around a tremendous amount of fucking guilt.
Right. As most people do, which we've talked about earlier. But once
of religion.
Right. But from an internal standpoint, right, and for your own health and well-being, you have come to terms with those mistakes you made. And that's the thing. You find your mistakes, you admit those mistakes to yourself, right? And now you've lived every day since trying to be a better human than you were in that window of time.
Yes.
Okay.
Too many people mistake the fact that life is one day at a time.
Exactly.
That's all you can control. I can only control what I'm going to say next, right? I'm done with the line I just said.
Yes, that's it.
That's it. We're done.
Right.
We're moving forward. Always.
Exactly.
Always moving forward. Right. One day at a time.
One day at a time. Yep. Win the day, win the week, win the month, win the year.
Yeah. That's all you can really do. And if you do that and you come to the end not being a Christian.
Yeah, see, that's where you and I agree with that. It's like, how could a loving God, because everything points to this loving, caring, generous, I created you in the image of myself, how could he then be like, fuck you, you're going to hell?
Right.
And I think hell was created by man because it needed something
to control the masses.
Exactly. There's got to be fear.
The one thing that I want people to understand in spades is that religion was created when people could not fucking read.
Right.
Nobody could read except for the people who were creating the religions.
Yes.
So these were not educated people. Language was fairly new. The written word was extremely new, and the printed word was
rare.
That was not even thought of yet, right?
Yeah.
So you're talking about people that couldn't read. So all they could do is stand there and listen to the person preach to them and whatever he said was gospel.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You got to go back to the root, right? You can't just accept what someone standing there this Sunday in 2025 is saying about something that happened 2,000 fucking years ago.
Yeah.
To Chris's point, we can't even get last year right.
No. It's but so I agree with you 100%. Like it's
we were talking about the legal system earlier. There is almost nothing more unreliable in a court of law, and any lawyer will tell you this, so will the judges, as an eyewitness testimony. They're some of the worst. People don't remember shit.
Nope.
If you ask me what color shirt 3 of the people I work with every fucking day were wearing today, I couldn't tell you.
Now, it's interesting you bring up court, right? Remember about a month ago I got a ticket for supposedly running a red light?
Yes.
Okay. So I went to the court and I requested visual proof. I wanted the dash cam and the officer's body cam, which when I requested that, it comes to light. It takes 14 to 16 months. Remember that?
Yes.
14 to 16 months. I've since paid for the money. I've paid the fee that's required to get said documentation in now 13 to 16 months because a month has lapsed. Friday, I file a petition to extend my court hearing, which is tomorrow, because I don't have the footage that would either find me 100% guilty or exonerate me 100%, because it comes down to the fact that I think I crossed that threshold before the light turned red. And then as I left the intersection, it did turn red. The cop was in the left lane. He would have headed south while I was heading west. Right? I went down today and took pictures of the shit. Because the court, the judge, the elected official, which I'm thinking about bringing up tomorrow, cited some fucking law on Arizona statutes that prevents me from getting the visual evidence that I requested to use towards my appearance tomorrow. So therefore, because the court is so backlogged with getting that physical evidence, I was not granted my motion. I have to appear tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Are you fucking kidding me?
I am not fucking kidding you. So
how hard is it to get a fucking piece of video in 2025
Right. Because they know where it is. They know where it is because
you're damn right they know where it is. I know where every episode of this podcast is, and I could pull it up in a moment's notice, right?
Well, and the reason why I think they know where it is because one of the correspondents I got back from the court, they said it was a total of 23 minutes of video that is going to be released from total amount of time, which makes sense because it would start when I entered the intersection if his dash cam was on, and it would then continue all the way to where he pulled me over, got out of his vehicle, we had our exchange, he wrote the ticket, came back, gave it to me, and left. That definitely was a 23-minute window.
So listen, ladies and gentlemen, the next time you think the government's fucking keeping an eye on you, they can't even find Chris's fucking video footage at the stoplight for 13 to 16 months, and now they say they can't find it at all.
Well, now they're saying I can't.
I'm not so worried anymore.
They're not saying they can't. You misunderstood what I said. They're not saying that. The court's saying that. Let's just find it. The court's saying that because of whatever fucking law. Let me go to my folder here.
That you're not entitled to it.
Hold on, I'm gonna read it to you verbatim. Gilbert PD.
Which is also bullshit. I'm entitled to anything that could prevent me from being
okay. So here's
unlawfully
the law.
Incarcerated.
Here's the ruling. Under Arizona law, email to and from public entities to the public records. Oh, that's the wrong thing. Hold on. The attachment. Okay. So they denied my motion to extend. And my motion to extend was based on the fact that I don't have the visual evidence giving me proof or disputing my thing. This is why they denied it. In motion on the following grounds, defendant's request for a continuance of the civil traffic hearing is denied. Defendant is seeking more time due to a discovery request per Rule 13 of the Arizona Rules of Court Procedure for Civil Traffic. Boating, marijuana, parking, and standing violations states that, quote, no pre-hearing discovery will be permitted absent extraordinary circumstances, end quote. Extraordinary circumstances have not been demonstrated. Defendant will be able to review any evidence the state intends to use while at the hearing prior to the commencement of the hearing. Now,
fuck you, they haven't been demonstrated. I'm innocent.
Right. So, until proven guilty. So my thing is if this cop shows up tomorrow and he has that visual evidence, I would be like, I call bullshit. I object. I was entitled as an American citizen. I'm entitled to see that evidence that he's presenting, so I have a chance to look at it before he does, or before the court is presented to the court.
100%.
That's not fair. That's not what the justice system is about. And I went and took pictures of the intersection because I want them to see that as you're sitting in this lane turning left going south, because I wasn't speeding. He noted I wasn't speeding. As I entered the intersection,
kind of him.
Right. And I was right. As I entered the intersection, when the image that I took turning left, like looking left, you can't see the color of the lights because the black dome, right, covers the lights like a stoplights. They're like, however they are, but they're long enough that you can't, on a corner angle, you look up and see, you can't see clearly what color the light is. It's impossible unless you're further back. But he was right at the crosswalk, going to turn left. I leave the intersection, and about halfway down, I clocked, it was 0.2 of a mile from the intersection to where I turned in the neighborhood. So I was at least halfway down there before he hit his lights and came this way. So then he caught me and I turned into the neighborhood, parked in front of a house, and he did his thing. But it's gonna fucking piss me off tomorrow if this cop shows up and says, well, here's the visual evidence. Fuck you. I requested that. Now you have it, but the court's telling me 14 to 16 months. I'm gonna look at the judge like, really, dude? That
give him hell.
Fair.
It's not fair.
No, and I'm supposed to know as an individual. And the funny thing is, when I was at the pre-hearing thing, I told the judge, "What do you want to pay the?" I'm like, I heard everything you've told everybody, sir, because I was like 7th or 8th in there. I was like, I'm not paying the fine. I'm not going to school. I'm taking this to court. Well, if you do this, I said, I understand that, but it's my right to go to court and present my evidence that this wasn't accurate. Okay, we'll go over there and blah 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 blah. So I did, and then I still didn't get my stuff Friday, so I sent the message. So I'm going to print all this shit out tomorrow and tonight and give it to him. Here's, especially if that motherfucker brings up footage. Because if he brings up footage, I paid for it. So there's fucking definitely wrong with the system, because if he's got it, why don't I have it?
You know damn well that the system is rigged. It's not fair.
Oh, hell yeah.
If you have money, you're going to get away with murder. If you don't, OJ. And many other people who are not even celebrities.
Absolutely.
It's just a proven fact. I mean, that system is stacked against you too. I just recently learned how the ghettos were created.
Oh, do tell.
That's the only place that realtors at that time, and you can appreciate this because it was on a podcast with a guy who was a realtor. That's the only place that they could sell black people houses at that time. They actually had pieces of the city. So when this is how horrible that whole situation was. When people would say, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get the fuck out of the ghetto. Like, unfortunately, we created the ghettos and then told the people to pick themselves up and try and buy houses in areas where they weren't allowed to have bought them.
Yeah. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
That's fucked up.
And that's a proven fact. Because the same laws that were in effect in the 60s were still observed. The laws weren't in effect anymore, but they were still observed in Baltimore as late as the early 2000s.
Oh, dude, there's shit on the books in Arizona, especially in the historic district in Phoenix.
That's fucking horrible.
That it talks about... And you can't quote me verbatim because I've never violated fair housing and never will, because everybody deserves to own a house, period. I don't care. But there's stuff on the older historic neighborhoods, HOAs, that Jewish people can't live there, black people can't live there. You can't, there's stupid laws that have talk about familial status. It's still there, and it's all a violation of fair housing. But until the homeowners of that community pick up and say, whoa, this is wrong, this shit stays there. It's not enforced anymore.
But it's still on the books.
Right, which means it could be enforceable if the wrong person buys into that neighborhood and is a bigot and a racist and just a flat-out fucking piece of shit human being. Then they read those rules and sit like, wait a minute. Then that all hell's going to break loose because,
Yeah, that's like a good example of a lot of, like the freaky people don't know that there's a lot of sodomy laws still on the books too. If you're if you're doing your significant other up the bunghole, that's a enforceable offense in a lot of states.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Still to this day, it's just, it's funny.
Absolutely. There's weird laws about oral sex,
and those are all things that I just don't understand.
I don't either.
We still have such that weird. And we're the only country on earth that's like that because we still have that weird Puritan,
which is stupid.
The people, that's a thing that a lot of people don't understand too. The pilgrims that came over here, they were basically rebels of their own religion that they left, right?
They were being persecuted. Yes.
They were being persecuted. But when they got here, everybody's under this, oh, well, we came here for religious freedom. It's like, yeah, as long as you believe the way the Puritans did, otherwise they fucking killed you.
Right. Exactly.
Just for the record.
Oh, yeah. No, but
they just true. Straight up fucking murdered everybody that didn't believe the way they did.
Yep. That primeval, that thing, that movie, the series that I watched.
Is that good?
Talked about. That's fucking great. Dude.
Okay, I got to get into that, man.
But it's going to make you, it's going to shine a light on if whatever accuracy there is when it comes to the Mormon religion, because if it does, that fucking put them in a very, very dark light. You want to talk about fucking putting masks on, killing your own?
Oh, actually, the origins of that religion are horrible.
Yeah,
they just are.
Yeah, but this takes it to a whole new. I mean, and I think it's no different from when the Puritans came to America. Then they fucking started annihilating the Indians and shit, right? So everybody's all about war. You got to you take what you want is what it comes down to. You want something, you got to take it back then, right? There's no.
Let's put it this way:
yeah.
the Mormon religion was started late enough that the Puritans had time to, they adopted the Lutheran, the Presbyterian, the Catholics, right? That had been established. So now you had Christianity in the United States by the time the Mormons came around.
Yep.
The Mormons were such fucking whack jobs that they kept getting booted west, right? The Mormon Trail of Tears, right?
Yes.
So they tried to pull that bullshit on the East Coast, and those people were like, you ain't doing that shit here.
Right.
So then they got to the Midwest, and the Midwest was like, you ain't doing that shit here. So that's how the Mormons ended up
in Utah.
And Mexico. A lot of them ended up, when, here's another fact that a lot of people don't know. When Utah applied for statehood, polygamy was still very much alive and well.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
The Mormons were still practicing polygamy before Utah became a state. When
Dude,
Utah went to Washington, D.C. and applied for their statehood, Washington was like, whoa, time out. You got to cut out the polygamy. And they're like, no, it's part of our religion. And they're like, then you're not going to be a state. Yeah. All of a sudden, there was no more polygamy. So that's really what it meant to the Mormon religion.
There's no more polygamy out in the forefront, but remember not so long ago, Arizona City?
But they live under that weird, they're unincorporated, they're part of Arizona, but they're not really part of Arizona. When Utah became a state, that's when all the Mormons jetted down that still wanted to practice polygamy. There's a huge Mormon sect in Mexico.
Sure. The FLDS, the Fundamental Latter-day Saints, the ones that take
they live in Arizona City.
Right. I don't know if it was Arizona City, but there was some weird small town.
Well, that's where Warren Jeffs was. He was in either Arizona City or Colorado City, or
maybe it was Colorado City. I don't.
That's where Warren Jeffs was at. One of those two.
Yeah, Warren Jeffs.
Fucking weirdo.
He was a weirdo. There's Nikki.
Hello.
Michael says hello. Hello. Warren Jeffs. Warren Steed. His middle name was Steed Jeffs. Serving a life sentence in Texas. Ooh,
where was he at, though? He was based. I swear he was based in Arizona City.
That's what I'm looking for. He's born in California. The twisted world of FLDS. Where the fuck is it? It's Arizona. I'll type in Arizona City.
But for those of you that don't know your religious history, that's the reason that the Mormons kept getting kicked west. Is they believed such weird things, as opposed to what the Christians believed at that time, that they were like, we're not going to have any part of that.
Right.
So the only place for them to go was the New Frontier.
Oh, he was arrested in a community straddling the Arizona and Colorado border known as Short Creek.
Okay.
So, yeah, it was Colorado City. Colorado City
Right.
is a town in Mojave County, Arizona, which was the region was known as the Arizona Strip, which is 2,500 people basically, and that's where.
I knew they were on the Arizona side. I watched the documentary.
Yeah. So and all these articles, massive changes after Warren Jeffs gets arrested and died and all that kind of shit. So, yeah, but it was Colorado City, not Arizona City.
Okay.
So for those of you that sold house in Arizona City, I was wrong. It's Colorado City.
You're safe. You guys weren't a bunch of polygamists.
Not Arizona City. Not Arizona City. Okay. So yeah, but yeah.
Which is another thing that here's where I'm an enigma.
Yep.
I probably agree more with the FLDS than I do with the way that people live today, right?
Yes.
All marriage is a fucking document that you agree to with the state. That's all it is.
Yep.
Religion doesn't require you to have that marriage certificate.
Nope.
The state does.
Yeah. Yeah. Legally bound. You got to be legally married.
So it's a contract you have with the state. It has nothing to do with your religion.
Yep.
Another little known fact.
Yep. Funny. Any screenshots you want to share from the mind of Mike Michaels?
Oh, I'm sure I have some.
Hey, we never talked about your weekend of gambling on the show. We talked about it off the show. How did you guys do?
We didn't win, but we had a damn good time.
Right on. So is that an annual trip you and your dad do?
We just go whenever we feel like it. This is one of my favorite funny ones lately.
Okay.
It's a picture of Lisa Simpson with a blackboard behind her, and it says, "Soda is more harmful than weed, you fucking assholes."
Right? Right?
It's a true statement. I just love it.
It's there's Nick and I talked about this the other day, like how the food's so bad in America that our food would be banned in other countries because of all the shit they put in it. So that's one thing I will say that the current administration is doing is they're chalking down on you have to list all the ingredients, and they're getting rid of some of the fucking man-made bullshit. Just because it's so detrimental to your health.
Yes. And it is illegal in every other country other than this. You won't find high fructose corn syrup in Europe.
No. I wonder how they make candy. Use corn syrup for candy. Willy Wonka uses corn syrup and cacao. Cacao
He didn't.
is the root of chocolate. Dude, we had cacao when we were
They
in
use
Belize.
real sugar.
We had cacao. Look at the screen. Watch me.
Yes.
We had cacao. Okay, in Belize. Dude, shit you not. It doesn't. Cacao in its raw form is not what you think it is. It. I don't know how else to explain it, but this, and this is going to probably gross some people out, but men understand. It looks like you take a used condom off your dingling, right, and the end of it is filled with the baby swimmers.
Okay.
That's what it looks like when you give it to us in Belize, and then it was this white looking thing, and then you put it in your mouth and like dissolves, and it's like I'm like wasn't what the end product of chocolate is. So if you don't want to ruin your love for chocolate, don't go to Belize and look at the cacao plants. Oh, and by the way, cashews, stay away from cashews. When they have cashew trees, okay, and for one
but
cashew,
I love cashews.
This you're going to stop now. For one cashew, they have to wear what's equivalent to a COVID-19 hazmat suit. Just extract that one cashew from the seed pod in the tree. That's how hazardous that shit is.
Why?
So, because it is. So go to walnuts, go to almonds, stay the fuck away from cashews, man.
But I love cashews.
Okay, I'm saving your life, Mike. We're gonna call this episode. Mike loves cashews. I love cashews too, but and now it's off the table because of that. It's think about it. To harvest it, you're wearing a hazmat suit.
Okay, no more fucking cashews.
Yeah, because if it gets on you, you're fucked, man. Which is just crazy to think about it, but it's true. It's absolutely true. Yeah.
Here's the one I wanted you to hear.
Okay.
This blew my mind because I never really thought about this, but it's so true. The reason why cannabinoids appear to cure so many illnesses is because prior to Prohibition, they were part of the human food chain.
No shit.
Dairy cows ate feral hemp, which was rich in CBD, and passed the CBD to humans through their milk.
Wow.
Pigs, chickens, and other livestock were also fed hemp, and the CBDs were in the meat and the eggs. Beginning in 1937, thanks William Randolph Hearst, you fuck, the government eradicated all forms of feral and cultivated hemp, thus eliminating CBD from the human diet, which it had been part of since prehistorical times. Wow. The rest of the story, 80-plus years of human suffering and misery, untold millions of needless deaths, all caused by prohibitionists who supported outlawing hemp for one reason and one reason only, because they were told to. You have been duped by your government for 80 years.
There you go.
So they took it out of the food chain, and anybody who takes CBD, and CBD is not psychoactive. It doesn't make you high.
No.
Anybody who takes CBD on a regular basis who suffers from chronic pain like I do will tell you it's a fucking miracle. There is not a painkiller. There's not a muscle relaxer. There's nothing on the planet that will do for you what that does. It's almost like it came from space.
Yeah.
The plant is as strong as steel and as light as a feather, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
But when I heard that, prohibition eradicated it from our diet, and all of a sudden all these diseases started cropping up.
Well, it's because you have to have the alcohol. Alcohol creates disease.
Yes, 100%.
It's just, it's like kind of like soda. It's not healthy. Why do you think when people stop drinking soda, I'm going to stop drinking soda for Lent, all of a sudden they lose 15 pounds? I'm going to stop drinking beer for Lent.
Sugar.
You lose 15 pounds.
Alcohol also turns to sugar, for those of you that don't know.
Yes.
It does.
So it's one of those things that if you stop drinking and you see a life change in your body, there's a reason why.
Yes.
Ozempic is not the savior, man. In 2-3 years, you're going to start seeing shit on TV. If you took Ozempic in 2024, 2025, you might be entitled to settlements from blah, 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 blah. Same with vaping.
Hey,
vaping.
Easy on my vaping.
I know, but
yeah, I know.
but you know what I'm saying? But you willingly, you're not stupid, but we're trusting somebody somewhere putting something in a vape pen, and you don't know the impact of it. And then they have that,
unless it's marijuana, because
Correct.
Marijuana has never been proven to, it's actually been proven to do the opposite. It's been proven to be an expectorant for your lungs.
Yeah.
And I just read another thing yesterday that it actually builds your brain cells back as well.
I was just referring to the nicotine part of it, the smoking.
I know. That can't be good.
No, and smoking in general is bad, and that's why, Philip Morris was a multi-trillion-dollar company, and
that's also why for anybody who believes that the government ever cared about the fucking drug war, if they cared about you as a person, 500,000 people a year die from fucking cigarettes.
Yep.
Nobody says anything. You want to know why? Money.
Guacamole, the green machine.
They didn't care about fucking drugs.
Nope.
They cared about keeping them illegal so that they could pipe them into the country illegally and sell them themselves and take that money and do whatever the fuck they wanted with it. That's been proven as well. That's not me talking out my ass.
Nope.
They made a movie about it.
Drop the movie.
That's how Bill Clinton became president.
Yes.
We're going to need to drop a fuck ton, and we've discussed what the definition of a fuck ton is.
Yes, we have.
We, Mr. Clinton, Governor Clinton, we are going to need to dump a fuck ton of cocaine in Arkansas. Don't ask any questions. We'll come get it. Well, who are you? Don't ask any questions. Good things will happen to you. The rest is history.
What movie is that?
Cocaine American. I think it's called American Made. Tom Cruise is in it.
Oh, yeah.
He
Good
plays
job.
Barry Seal, the guy that flew the plane.
Yep, American Made. Yep, go watch American Made, boys and girls.
Yep, true story.
True story. And, there you go. So let's call it a day. Happy Tuesday. Do we have somebody coming on Friday?
Yes.
The next episode? It's your buddy, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Kyle.
Hi, Kyle.
He's going to come tell us his story.
Right on. So I'll work on some other potential people after that day, and the person that was coming on the day, he and I kind of have a what do you want to call it? It's a difference of opinion. He's somebody that I've known for years that kept kind of dangling this carrot. Oh, I'm gonna help your business. I'm gonna do this and that, this and that, and this and that. And so a while ago I kind of was a little real with him, and he started getting all butthurt, and so then I reeled that back. But when I messaged this person today, I was working on this and that, and I didn't put it down, and I'm like, it's all good, dude. I'm like, I said I was going to bash you for not, because he thinks podcasts are a joke. So it was my opening line was going to be like, hey, blank, let us understand why you think podcasts are a joke, but in the last month I've seen you on about 6.
And that's fine.
But he's
not everybody likes the same thing.
No, so I was explaining my side of things in a text, and he kept coming back like I was fighting him, and I'm not going to fight you. I'm like, dude, this isn't a fight, man. This is not a fight. If you think this is a fight, then we're so not a fit for one another from a business standpoint.
And I do this because it's fun. If it was a job or it felt like it was something we had to do, we wouldn't do it. It's fun. I've learned so much from just listening to different podcasts. It's amazing.
I've learned so much just from you. It's amazing. Not that it's amazing.
And vice versa.
But just, yeah. So this situation that didn't happen today, basically, he dangled a carrot again, and I just called him out on it. And he didn't like that. Thought I was picking a fight. I'm like, I'm not picking a fight. If he thinks it's me picking a fight, then we have no business being in business relationship whatsoever. And then I had said one more thing, ending the conversation like, hey, love you, no harm, no foul. We're just not a match. It's fine. That's life, man. I'm just not going to go down another path for 3 years, waiting for you to do what you say you're going to do. I'm tired of it. I followed you in all these different things, and nothing ever came out of them. I said, so it's just not my thing. Like, best of luck. And then he chimed in. I'm like, motherfucker, you don't need to have the last word in everything. Just, this is it. Just move on with your life now.
Those people
I'll move on with mine. But it's just funny because this person at one point in time was a badass in my industry. But he was a badass to the fact that he propelled 2 people, not 100, not 1,000, but 2, into the stratosphere. Great. So that's kind of the carrot he was dangling. And I didn't buy into it per se, but I was like, okay, there's nothing wrong with me hitching my wagon because I have very clear expectations of, I don't inflate somebody's value until they show me something, right? Because I've been there, done that enough in my career. But it was just the same rhetoric. And then he starts dropping all the same rhetoric and shit. I'm like, dude, no offense, man, but kind of like Ricky Bobby, when he's in that scene with that one guy, I beg your pardon, but fuck you. And I didn't say that because I'm more respectful than that. But it was just, it was ironic that this person kept having to have the last say. And I read that book, audiobook, listened to it, called Dark Psychology, and he so fits one of those type of personality types because I'm not being confrontational, I'm being real. This is over. It's not working for me. Have a nice life. Fuck. No. Legit.
That pisses those people off.
Right, and which is unfortunate because again he comes across as a really genuine human being, and I'm sure he is. And some of the stuff he's done in since I've known him has been very philanthropic and very giving, and from a person who gives a lot too, I can respect that. But
those kind of personalities can't help how they are. They just, they could if they put some thought into it. But like you're saying, this guy's he's so far down the line as far as being that way.
Right, and then it's the woe was me stuff, talking about elements of his life. It's like, okay, again, dude, I'm not, whatever, man, whatever.
I get misunderstood because people think I don't care, and it's not that I don't care. It's just that I don't put a lot of myself into things that don't matter.
Right.
There's only so much of me to go around. That's always my joke, right?
Right.
That's not really a joke. It's like you only have so much mental fortitude to put towards things. And like you said, they can't accept that you simply said, this is not going to work. Those people take that as an attack. It's like, I'm not attacking you. I'm just saying I don't want to work with you.
Right. And
what part of that don't you understand?
Right. And that's how that came across. And then while we were sitting here during our show, there was 2 more messages from this person. I'm just like, don't let the bad days win, boys and girls. There's always somebody that's going to love you the next day. So remember that if you're having a bad day, don't do something stupid, okay? Just step back into yourself, take a deep breath, go meditate, I think we're going to start trying this thing. It's called blue lighting. We're going to turn off the TV an hour before bedtime and get rid of all the blue light from the show we did with Nate that you were kind of in and out on.
Yes, I'm
we're going to try that.
Looking forward to listening to that.
Yeah, we're going to try that and see what kind of impact it has on our sleep. Because, she sleeps like a rock. I sleep. She says I can fall asleep like that, but I don't feel like I do.
I know I don't. I never have.
And then we're gonna do a 24-hour fast based on Nate's recommendation. We're gonna do that Thursday night at 6. We'll have our meal, and then all it is from that point on until Friday night at 6.
Water
is water, black coffee, tea, or electrolytes.
Well, you have to report back how that works.
I will, absolutely.
All right, brother.
So for Mike Michaels, I'm Chris Tom. This is Chris and Mike Show. Thank you for listening. We're approaching the ever elusive Centurion show.
We're getting close, man.
We're getting close, man. Baby steps.
That's
Baby
cool.
steps. It is very cool. It's very. And you know what? It's 4:20. So
that's even cooler. I gotta go. I appreciate you noticing.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Peace.
Peace.
Quickly, we're gonna fly into the look the tablet, go insane. Feel the tears flow through your hands. On your journey, take it slow to the place where you will go. Feel the trail behind your eyes. Feel the sorrow beneath your breath. Take a moment, listen to your tears. Fight the battle that you must win. Fight the battle that you must win. Who listen, baby, to your fear? Yeah. Listen to your fear. Now you're turning, come down in. You haven't found solid to your sand. You keep on fighting, wait for the day when you close your eyes and get further away. You ain't no preacher, with a praying man. You took your breath on the Almighty's hand. You got a dream, who in your life to keep on soaring every night. Take the trip behind your eyes. Feel the soul revolution night. Yeah. Take a moment.